Hayle is a portside town located in western Cornwall, England. The area has been inhabited since prehistoric times, as it is home to a naturally formed harbour where the River Hayle drains into St. Ives Bay. Near the mouth of the river, it splinters off into a number of pools and estuaries as much of the water winds its way out to sea. As the endless torrent of the river has pushed sediment out to sea over the ages, sand began to amass along the eastern mouth of the river, which has formed a massive white sand tidal beach known as Hayle Beach. Hayle began to gain significance as a major exporting shipping port in the mid-1700s, and the area began to see a boom of industrialization not long after the Cornish Copper Company built a copper smelter and constructed what is considered to be the world's first modern wharf to service its operations. As the copper smelter thrived, a canal was constructed leading up to the building itself, and this canal, along with the attached tidal pool, became known as Copperhead Pool. However, in 1779, a blacksmith from a nearby town sought to capitalize on the booming industry and established a foundry works, which was simply named Foundry. As both businesses thrived, the competing companies began to grow increasingly resentful and hostile to one another. The Cornish Copper Company had a monopoly over access to the dock and sluices that they had constructed, and so, much like their competitors, the foundry decided to build their own harbor, deepening the river and constructing a dock and their own culverts and sluices to fill and access it, which became known as Carnsaux Pool. The water in Carnsaux Pool was connected to the main harbor by two 40-foot culverts that drained water from the main harbor to Carnsaux Pool as the tides rose. An interesting side effect of these tidal culverts, however, are the whirlpools that were formed near high tide in Hayle Harbour, an effect caused by the massive amount of water flowing through the culverts and into Carnsaux Pool, much like how bath water forms a vortex around the drain after it is opened. These culverts also notably help with the expulsion of sand from the harbor, which is one of the major reasons for the enormity of Hayle Beach when compared to the surrounding beaches in St. Ives Bay. Jacob Cockle was born on March 2, 1985 in Penzance, a small coastal town located in southwest Cornwall, England. The youngest child of four siblings, Jacob spent his childhood years frequenting the nearby white sand beaches, and a young Jacob began to develop an affinity for the water. At age 10, Jacob was diagnosed with dyslexia, which was the root of his constant struggles with his schoolwork, and as he aged into his teenage years, he began to skip school altogether, opting instead to hitchhike to the nearby beaches with his friends to catch some waves in the sun. In 2001, Jacob's older sister Grace, who was 3 years his elder and his closest sibling throughout his childhood, was spending her gap year working in France when she began to become plagued by severe headaches. By August of that year, the headaches had grown so severe that Grace returned home from France, and in September, after seeking medical assistance for the headaches, she was diagnosed with a malignant, cancerous brain tumor. In order to receive the medical care she needed to combat the tumor, Grace was relocated to a hospital in Plymouth, England, which is located approximately 80 miles east of Penzance. Jacob and Grace's parents opted to camp nearby, but left Jacob behind in Penzance, telling him only sparse details of his sister's radiotherapy treatment, not wishing to needlessly uproot his life or worry him, as they believed that Grace would quickly beat the tumor and return home. However, about 6 months after completing radiotherapy, Grace's tumor returned again, and she had to be rushed to a hospital in Belgium for an urgent operation. The operation, however, was not a complete success, and not long after, the tumor returned and the cancer was deemed terminal. Grace died on December 18, 2002, at age 20, after a long and difficult battle against the cancer that racked her body. Grace's death was very hard on the now 17-year-old Jacob, as he struggled to grasp how such a responsible, ambitious, and bright young woman like Grace could just die so suddenly and in such a horrific manner. However, he found solace in his belief that his sister's energy had transferred into him and vowed to try as many things as he possibly could during his life. As Jacob transitioned into adulthood, this would mean many things as Jacob sought to achieve his years-long ambitions of becoming a, quote, world-famous photographer and filmer, as he described in his writings. His love of the camera paired well with his fun-loving, daredevil tendencies, as he would film himself and his friends' escapades in the water, training himself to hold his breath for prolonged periods of time in order to be able to descend to greater depths within the water and be more at home within it, as he and his crew began to take on increasingly risky endeavors, including surfing towards and sometimes over rocks, and in 2008, he appeared in a photograph in numerous national newspapers that showcased his fearlessness to the entire UK. Along with his surfing exploits, Jacob would also garner renown for his proclivity for jumping off of high buildings and bridges into the water below, and once he was nearly run over by a passing ship after leaping into Penzance Harbour, narrowly avoiding it after he was rescued by 5 friends who just happened to be nearby. These stunts, combined with his natural talent for photography, established Jacob's name within the photography industry, and he was a regular contributor for the Sunday Times, National Geographic, and numerous surf magazines, with his stunning photographs often gracing the covers of the latter. On May 24th, 2011, Jacob created a YouTube channel which he named Whirlpool Hitman, with his content focused around oceanic whirlpools, with the description section of the channel reading, quote, "New ocean whirlpool videos uploaded every full moon," it reads. Although the channel also features a variety of other videos ranging from top 5 lists to videos of cute kittens, alongside some videos with clearly clickbait titles such as Alien in Whirlpool and Mike Tyson vs. Whirlpool, and of course, Justin Bieber vs. Whirlpool. On this Whirlpool Hitman channel, Jacob frequently uploaded videos of himself approaching and even entering these whirlpools, and taught others how to do so in a safe manner, and he soon began to garner an audience online for his interesting and daring videos. However, after uploading Justin Bieber vs. Whirlpool, which is just a 2-minute video of a static picture of Justin Bieber holding a sign that ominously reads, quote, "Share and I will jump into a deadly whirlpool," interspersed with brief flashes of footage of a whirlpool. But following this upload on May 26, 2013, new uploads from the channel would abruptly cease as the channel went dark. On May 28, 2013, Jacob excitedly donned his wetsuit in preparation for his latest whirlpool excursion, the tidal culvert whirlpools in Hayle, Harbour, which were known to be particularly large and powerful during the springtime tides. Along with his wetsuit, Jacob had of course brought with him his cameras, along with a rubber Archie McPhee horse mask that was popular within meme culture at the time. Accompanying Jacob for his excursion was his local friend, a 70-year-old man named David Rain, who agreed to assist him with his filming efforts by recording his stunts from ashore, while Jacob focused on recording up-close footage of the whirlpool from his perspective on his stick-mounted GoPro camera. However, Jacob was extremely eager to begin filming and decided to start filming before David had arrived. Upon entering the water, Jacob approached the whirlpool, filming up-close shots with his GoPro, sticking it into the center of the vortex, and then dove down a few feet to capture some more footage of the whirlpool from underwater. Just shy of 4 minutes after first entering the water, Jacob entered the whirlpool with his body for the first time, bobbing at the surface for a few seconds before retreating outside the vortex. Over the following few minutes, Jacob would do this several more times, spending more time within the whirlpool's vortex each time as he grew more comfortable with it, capturing incredible footage with his GoPro from within the whirlpool. After spending 12.5 minutes dancing in and out of the whirlpool, he emerged from the water and donned his latex Archie McPhee horse mask for the second phase of filming for his video. Much like the first time he entered the water, Jacob apprehensively approached the whirlpool but did not enter the vortex, and then swam away from it to check his camera again before he began his dance with the whirlpool once more. As he swirled around the edge of the whirlpool, he began to make exciting neighing sounds, squealing out in a muffled, high-pitched voice,
"I'm a horse and I'm going to make love to a whirlpool. Watch me make love to a whirlpool,"
he screeched from beneath the mask. Much like the first filming segment, Jacob nervously darted into the center of the vortex for a few seconds, spending slightly longer inside the vortex each time as he became more comfortable with entering it wearing the mask. After about 10 minutes spent doing this, David Rain arrived to assist with the filming, and Jacob briefly explained how to operate the camera to him. Before donning the horse mask again and hopping back in the water, Jacob remarked, "We've got to hurry because it's going to go any minute," he said. Clearly excited to have someone to film him in the mask, Jacob swirled about the whirlpool, laughing and neighing while exchanging a few friendly words with David. David remarked to Jacob, "It's a very powerful one tonight, isn't it?" To which Jacob responded, "Earlier on tonight, it was scary. It was really scary," with David blurting in, "It still is." Jacob continued on after the exchange, quote, "It's fine now because of safety. You can kind of control it. But when I first got in, I was a bit scared to be honest," he said. After a few more minutes of capturing footage and chatting with David, Jacob decided he wanted to take one last dive to capture some more underwater footage of the whirlpool before it dissipated, and passed David the horse mask and asked for another camera that was attached to an 8-foot pole. "One last bit of underwater footage and we'll call it a day," Jacob said before he dove beneath the surface. Unfortunately, this would be the last time he was seen alive, as he did not resurface from this final dive. When Jacob didn't resurface after some time, David hurriedly ran to where the culverts drained into Carnso Pool, but found no sign of Jacob. He peered in a grill over the culvert, but also saw no sign of him. In a final act of desperation, he asked the local fisherman who had just arrived whether he had seen Jacob, but he had not either. Not long after asking the fisherman, however, David spotted Jacob bobbing in the water near the entrance to the culverts, face down in the water. David waded out to him to attempt to rescue him, while the fisherman contacted emergency services, but by the time he reached Jacob, he was clearly dead. Jacob was airlifted to a nearby hospital for emergency treatment, but was pronounced dead not long after his arrival. In the aftermath of the incident, an inquest into Jacob's death was launched. The coroner's report found that he had died from drowning, and also found that he had trace amounts of the drug ketamine in his body, although the amounts found were not enough for him to be intoxicated at the time of his death. They also noted that his severe dyslexia may have been a factor in his death, as the inquest noted that it may have inhibited his decision-making, which was further backed by Jacob's mother, Carolyn, who stated, quote, "He was severely dyslexic. He had no concept of time, but always did what he wanted to do. He never had any fear of danger," she said. However, as evidenced by the footage he had shot, Jacob was clearly a strong swimmer who had experience entering whirlpools. So what exactly had caused his death when he had spent more than 20 minutes in and around the whirlpool, and the whirlpool had almost dissipated? Well, the added buoyancy of his wetsuit is what allowed him to bob within the whirlpool in the first place without being sucked down into it. However, as he dove to deeper depths during his last dive, the buoyancy of the wetsuit was reduced, and as the final dive was the deepest he had dove all evening, perhaps bolstered by the whirlpool's dying strength, he descended to a depth where his wetsuit no longer kept him buoyant against the weight of the water and was sucked into the vortex and pushed down within it. In the wake of Jacob's death, an enormous number of people turned up for his memorial service. So many people, in fact, that the church it was held at reached maximum capacity and had to begin turning some mourners away as a result. Jacob was a man who was described by his family and his many friends as a bright, friendly, passionate man who loved photography and spending time in the sea. The footage from his final dance with the Whirlpool is available on YouTube, and I'll link it in the description. Thank you all for watching.